My thoughts on feast or famine characters. I'll kind of explain what they are. I mean, there's a handful of them, honestly, and a lot of them will probably be around skill shots, skill shot focused. But and I honestly I could probably have like a top 10 or 15 list. But I think it'd be fun to kind of give my thoughts on it, and you guys might have different characters. So, real quick, I'm videotaping this on it's like 15th of July of 2021. Um, so granted, the reason I give the date is because of the balance patches. Who knows what will change after that. Um, and then also, if you hear a humming noise in the background, it's my fan. Um, yeah, it just kind of comes with the territory of having amazing video recording space. But definitely want to talk to you guys about my top three feast or famine. So, feast or famine, the best way I can explain it is um, when you're on, like basically you're like killing it, you're doing amazing, you're doing everything you need to do, you're predicting what the other opponent is doing before they even know what they're doing, as an example. That's kind of what I mean. Now, obviously, if you're off a little bit, the rotations are off or combinations are off a little bit, it's hard to be as impactful on the character. There's ways to do it, and sometimes to get yourself back in the game, especially if you're on that type of character like that. Um, Probably, it'd be the easiest way to kind of get you back in it, because there's a lot of psychological things that can be said, whether you're the person on the character, landing the combinations or getting those kills or whatever that may be, or doing a ton of damage. But then also there's a psyche or psychological effect that goes into the other side too. Like if you're, getting constantly dead by that character, or I mean, you kind of get more and more afraid, or you're more and more cautious through the rest of that game, right? So, there's a whole bunch of components in it, and again, it is a game, and you're trying to predict people, but depending on the character you're against, you don't really know their tendencies unless you're just amazing at assessing that really early on. Now, there's a handful of notable ones. I mean, there's going to be a lot of them I missed. And a majority of these are probably like skill-based characters. Now, some kind of honorable mentions for sure. Like Maeve, I feel she's kind of a skill set. She's, labeled as a hard hero, and I think getting the mechanics down is pretty challenging. I really considered putting her in the top three, but I don't even know where I would rank her, honestly. I didn't go that far. Maybe I'll do another video in the future if you want me to elaborate and it's that entertaining or engaging. And I'll engage with you guys if you comment in the comments below too, if you see this on YouTube later, at some point in the future. So Maeve definitely was one of those feast or famine characters in my opinion. Also, Alarak for sure was an honorable mention. Just because of the way the combos go, to play him well. There's a lot of strategy, and you have to be really patient with Alarak and seize your opportunity when it's there, and then capitalize on it. And he's hard for me for sure. And just to give you a reference point, I'm not an amazing player. Like I usually hang out in gold and silver ranks. So obviously my perspective is going to be very different than a grandmaster or master player. But yeah, just to put it in context, and again, you guys might have different opinions, because maybe you're like, you know what, Robert, I'm a bomb Maeve player, but I can't play anything else. Awesome. So obviously that's not going to apply to you. But I just think this is kind of a general thing where if you're on, you're killing it, and everything is just falling, and the game is easy. Or if you're having a hard time, like your team composition isn't set up for you to really be successful, it gets a little bit more challenging. So my number three feast or famine character is actually Kyrigan. Okay, so Kyrigan isn't hard per se. If you're aware of the counters and if you're patient, it's for the most part it can be pretty easy. And there's amazing Kyrigan players. I'm okay at best for myself, but I've noticed, especially in my ranks and even at the higher ones, it's a lot of the the combination shots, right? Landing your W and the E talent. Here, I'll pull it up for you guys. You got the impaling and then the primal grasp. I'm not even 100% sure how to do it. I think it has something to do with dropping the W first, and then, but predicting where the W is because there's like a little radius, if that makes sense. And then trying to time the E so when the E grabs the people, the W lands off of the stun, right? And that's essentially how the combo works. And I still haven't, like, sometimes I'll get it amazing, sometimes I'm like super off. And then again, it's probably my skill set and my lack of mechanical ability. But when there's no one that's stopping Kyrigan and that person is on Kyrigan and they're just destroying people left and right. And I mean, I've played Kyrigans where they know where I'm going before I know. But at the same time, if they're struggling and for whatever reason something got in their head or they're off, it's a very hard game, and she can actually look pretty bad. Again, kind of depends on the character, but when she's rolling, right? Can completely destroy. Now, my number 2 pick is actually right next to her on here, is Kel'Thuzad. So Kel'Thuzad's super interesting if you haven't played him yet. If you're watching this video, I'd be surprised if you haven't. But he's a lot of combinations, and a lot of it is moving targets, really. Like, he's a skill shot based character with a lot of how his combo works. If you spec one of the ultimates that he has, it can be also part of the combination. But he also can do combinations without it, and they can also still be very devastating with all of his abilities. So a lot of it is generated from the E ability here. And then, so if you can envision this, if you haven't played, it's like you're trying to lock a moving target with a skill shot number 1, right? And the secondary thing is you're trying to lock that initial target to a secondary target, which also could be moving. Now later, I wonder if it's easily pictured here. I don't think. I'm trying to remember. Oh, it's Glacial Spike. I don't know if there's an icon to suggest it anywhere, but eventually when it gets stacked up enough, I think there's like 2 tiers of it. I'm going off the top of my head, so a lot of this I'm not remembering exactly, but he gets this ability called Glacier Spike if he stacks enough or gets enough combinations, and he can actually make a stable anchoring point. So then he can like just pick off targets one at a time. Now, I didn't really mention it with the Kyrigan, but the reason I think he's Feast or Famine is because, if you get these combinations late in the game, like that could literally be like the match, essentially. Because picks later in this game are pretty devastating, because then you have timers, and you could be on 5-on-4 for like a minute, as an example. But again, if he's not hitting his combos at all or not consistently, then it's just kind of like he's not getting it, right? Now there's other things he can do, but a lot of his power comes off of those combinations, and he can like literally 100-0 people if he connects. But again, interesting character because it's so dynamic with the way his abilities go. I mean, it's like without the Glacier Spike or whatever it's called. What's it called? Glacial Spike. But without that, though, there's no anchoring point. So normally, before he even gets to that stage, he has to lock a first target, then lock it to a second, and both of those targets are moving ideally all the time. So trying to predict those variables can be really challenging. So then, obviously, he's got to time it, kind of much like the Kyrigan, where he's got to throw like a W, but then also time it before you try to join the 2 targets with your E combination. So ideally, when they meet, they get stuck together, and then they get stuck again. It's like kind of almost a double stun, sort of. It's I guess a way to explain it. Now, obviously, that's just the main combo you're trying to get, and then you could throw a Q on there, which is his AoE ability, which is primarily used to clear lanes. On top of, you go to level 7, that makes everything slow with an auto attack. And then also the W could be an AoE too, but outside of being used as a stun and slow, I think it does stun. Oh no, it just slows maybe. Oh, it roots them, that's what it is. Okay. So, but then also you can throw on top of that the ultimate, his R button or whatever. And ideally he can like destroy people. Like he's single-handedly in the crazy, in the best hands with the right makeup, can completely destroy, make games easy. And again, those kills that come out of nowhere are super devastating late game. Now, the number one character for me is actually Stitches on the Feast or Famine category. Now, can't even find him. All right. So with Stitches, he's actually not hard to play per se. Like his Q is a skill shot, W sort of a skill shot, but it's kind of close and it has a big area, and then his E is like a point and click. Obviously his ultimates, one of them is like a slow and damage, and the other one is like he just envelops a hero type thing. Now the reason I mark him number one as Feast or Famine is because it's really weird. Like the other two characters, like he could literally miss his Qs all game, which a lot of the times is disengage, the way people are using it right now, or a re-engage as an example. I mean, late game, if he gets a hook, it's like devastating. But here's the thing, right? If the Stitches player psychologically gets worse and worse and loses confidence and isn't really trying to see the patterns as clear, then obviously he's not going to be as effective, just like the other characters, right? So, in fact, all three of those characters, you can actually, it's like they're high reward characters, right? High, what's the word? High something. There's some key phrase that gets thrown out all the time that I'm missing. High risk, high reward characters is how I'd probably categorize them, instead of Feast or Famine. But I like Feast or Famine. We'll just do that. And also, it's fitting for Stitches because he talks about being hungry all the time. But with Hook, it's interesting because, and especially a lot of them, like I was saying before, like Kel'Thuzad, Kyrigan, it's like you could literally be like inting all game or just dying all game, and then these combinations late game, like can instantly like almost win you the game. It's later in the game. Same thing with a Hook. Like a Stitches, just the fact that he's on the board against you is always a danger, even if they've been missing all game, right? But it kind of depends on that Stitches player if they can keep themselves in it, just like all of these characters that are kind of like on that bracket. But anyway, that's my list. So again, Stitches number one, Kel'Thuzad number two, Kyrigan number three for me, and I did give some honorable mentions, and there's probably a lot of others that I didn't list that you could probably put in that category for sure. We just want to know your guys' thoughts. Go ahead and put in the comments below what you guys think are those characters for you, and yeah, and I'll reply back. But yeah, if you like more of this content, go ahead and subscribe to Robert Hots on YouTube if you see it here. And also, if you want to support me streaming live online, just go ahead and follow Robert until I change it later. I don't know. We'll see. Follow Robert on Twitch. You guys have a good one. Come say hi if you guys actually see me in game. Hopefully I'm not tilting at you, which I do sometimes. Try not to. Good for the most part, but you got a lot to get me angry, but it does happen. By that time I probably need to take a break anyway. Alright, see you guys in there. Take care.